What is up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new Batwoman review. So I said last week that I would probably be reviewing this episode after reviewing last week's episode for the first time in a little while, since episode 6 I believe, just because of the ending proposed a very interesting continuation of the story, with of course Beth appearing due to more fallout from Crisis on Infinite Earths, which we got quite a bit of in this episode. And to be honest, guys, straight off the bat, yet again, I no pun intended there, seriously, I thought this was quite a decent episode. I actually quite enjoyed it because, one thing that you may know from me, echoing through my opinion throughout these Batwoman reviews, is that Rachel Skarsten's Alice is probably one of the most, if not the strongest thing of the show. I've also said, what would this show kind of be without the character of Alice? And now that they've given quite the twist to Alice, with of course her doppelganger arriving at the end of last episode with Beth from another Earth due to the fallout of Crisis on Infinite Earths, it's made things very, very interesting. And in this episode, I was quite eager to find out what, and I'm happy to say I wasn't really disappointed. Things got very, very interesting. And this episode as well was filled with some very decent scenes, and yet again, due to Alice, I really enjoyed the interrogation scenes with her. Also, of course, we had more flashbacks, which kind of reminds me of my other favorite episode in this season, which was episode 6, where we got a lot of flashbacks with Alice. Now, as I've said plenty of times before, I haven't exactly enjoyed every single episode of Batwoman, quite the opposite at times, but yet again I found myself enjoying an episode like this quite a lot. And yet again, it kind of goes to show that Batwoman does have potential for all of those who, tend to maybe really write off this show. I guess the people who just call it trash won't even give it a chance, but I keep coming back to it to see, if it can kind of capture my interest, and it most certainly can at points, even though, yet again, of course, I do kind of find little parts here and there, even in episodes like this, which I can't really dismiss. But before I go on to talk about the specifics of the episode, guys, if you go on to enjoy this episode review, of course, go ahead and like the video, subscribe for more coverage on comic book nerdy things like this, and hey, why not join my Discord server to talk about Batwoman with me personally? The link will be in the top pinned comment down below. So in this episode, we had a couple of things going on at the same time. Of course, Alice was captured and at the Crow's headquarters, but then, of course, this episode also picked up with Beth, with Kate there. She also got pepper sprayed in the face because, at this point in time, she didn't quite believe that, she wasn't Alice. But yeah, the interesting and the more interesting parts of this episode, of course, I would say, as I mentioned in the first couple of minutes of this review, were the Alice interrogation scenes. I just felt like Rachel Skarsten really steals a lot of scenes that she's in, and it adds just a lot of quality to the episode. But also, what was really intriguing about this episode is that we also had Rachel, of course, playing the other version of herself from another Earth, Beth. So of course we had Kate investigating Beth, looking at her phone. This also opened up some interesting information in terms of how she said that she has seen these pictures on her phone from another Earth. Now I believe that this was a photo from Earth 99, if you guys remember, the Earth where Batwoman kind of killed the future kind of Batman, who kind of went a bit rogue. But either way, this doesn't necessarily mean that this was that Earth's Beth, just because on that Earth as well, Kate had already been dead for a while, because she followed the mantle of Bruce Wayne's Batman. If you guys remember that, Kevin Conroy's Batman said that in Crisis, and this Beth was talking as if, Kate was still alive. So I'm just guessing this photo, with obviously multiple, or should I say infinite Earths out there, was a photo and a thing on many, many Earths, and she's just from some other Earth. But, that's not mega important. It's just a nice Crisis tie-in. I also appreciated the line from Luke Fox when he said, when that galactic dude put all those Earths in the blender, somehow she landed on this one. But I assume he means Oliver, just because, at first you would have thought the galactic dude means the Monitor, but Oliver was kind of the one who put all of the Earths in a blender. And one of the other confusing things post-Crisis is that they're saying that the multiverse, on multiple kind of shows now is kind of no more, but they're not really mega kind of acknowledging that there are kind of other Earths out there. I guess Earth Prime is a blend of quite a few Earths, but at the same time, they're acting as if the multiverse is no more, when there technically is still a multiverse, because you have the Titans Earth, you have the Doom Patrol Earth, you have the Stargirl Earth, Earth 2, you still have a few out there, but I guess it may not be infinite Earths anymore. Now, we figured out in this episode that Kate actually pulled Alice, or should I say Beth, I'm getting confused now, I'm not used to this whole two Beth/Alice situation, from the car. So was Batman even there? I'm guessing that he was on her Earth, just because because the car would have still been like half off the bridge, and that was a thing just because his grapple hook was still there. It's also interesting to consider that Bruce may still be Batman on this Beth's Earth as well, because when she met Luke Fox in the episode, she was saying like, oh no, you work for my cousin Bruce, right, kind of thing. This doesn't really mean much, of course, but it's just another little thing to ponder at the end of the day. And interestingly for Beth, the whole concept of the multiverse and how she may have arrived here on this Earth isn't such a strange thing for her, because she was like Cosmo, I can't even remember, but either way, she understands it because yeah, she studied something quite sciencey. But either way, it's kind of weird now. Like she's on this Earth, she's down with everything that's kind of happened. I mean, she's not mega cool with it because nobody recognizes her, but it's just interesting now that Kate has a sister and Beth still has her sister, even though like I feel for Beth it should be slightly a bit more traumatizing because she's kind of lost everyone. She's lost her Kate. Like, doesn't that kind of bother her? I know she's got our Kate, but it's still not her Kate. But she seems to have digested this very, very easily, and she seems to be okay with this replacement Kate. I mean, I don't think I'm looking too into that there. It's just that, fair enough, she's still got a sister, but it's not her sister. So that would personally still bother me a bit, but I guess she's making the best of the situation she's in. But the big thing in this episode was Mouse holding hostages in order to get Alice released. But there was also quite an on-the-nose thing in this episode, which I get why they do it, because it does make sense and it highlights kind of real-world issues in a way, but I felt like it was slightly too on the nose with the way it kind of kept popping up in the episode. This was shown through the GCPD not turning on the bat signal, and they hint at this through the commissioner not turning it on because of, the news reporter asking her, is it because of Batwoman coming out as a lesbian? And there were multiple references to this in the episode. The radio commentator saying Batwoman is on the GCPD's do not call list. So, at the end of the day, I do get it, but it's just, I think for me, I don't mind the stuff being in the show, especially since this show obviously does surround quite a bit of that message. But I would love to know your opinion on that down in the comments below, guys. Do you mind this stuff? Do you think it's fine? Do you think it's even a great thing? Or do you think too much of it is potentially off-putting for some viewers, and as I keep saying, too on the nose? Because, at the end of the day now, we've got a GCPD who is basically completely homophobic, and they do not want the city's savior to help them because she's gay. So it's just like, really? I mean, I guess it's a possibility, but like, okay. But at this point, we had Kate, of course, wanting to suit up and save the hostages, but that's when Mouse comes out of nowhere and knocks her off her bike, and she luckily survives. The flashbacks in this episode. Yet again, I really enjoy the flashback stuff, because this gave a lot of context, as all the flashbacks do, to how Alice became the way she did. So this saw even Mouse giving Alice a kitten for her birthday, because, in this episode, it was Kate and Beth's and Alice's birthday. We saw more flashbacks of Mouse with his father trying to put a face on him, which didn't work, which then led to actually Beth herself, with the audience realizing that she was actually the one to make the face that finally worked for Mouse, which of course adds up to present day, as we've seen that in previous episodes. But the most interesting thing, to cut to the chase, is that we see the moment that Alice kind of decides to switch off. Like she flips off the switch in her head because she looks at that quote on the back of her book saying that it's no use going back to yesterday because I was a different person then. And of course we need to kind of understand here the context of like living, being kidnapped and literally dealing with that, and we've seen that in previous flashbacks. But the amount of mental stress and everything that would do to you, you can't really blame Alice for kind of realizing and accepting is there's no point going back to yesterday. I kind of need to accept that I'm not going to be saved, and as a result of that, she's kind of like saying, screw it, I'm going to kind of cope by changing my personality, and that's exactly what she did. And I really enjoy the younger Alice actor, because I feel like she does a really good job, and in this moment it was kind of creepy because she just changes her voice, becomes slightly high-pitched, obviously mimicking that of Alice's behavior. But going back to the interrogation scenes, of course these were weaved in with that, and I just felt like it was this was what made the episode quite a decent episode. But at this point in the episode, we learn that Kate is now a hostage after what happened between her and Mouse, and as a result, Beth wanted to save Kate, because, you know, on her Earth, Kate saved her from that car crash, so she gets in the Alice makeup, and I found this very, very interesting. Yet again, going back to the whole, you know, seeing Rachel Scarston portray two different versions of Alice, or Beth, should I say, it is just very intriguing to see in an episode. But unfortunately, she gets discovered, and at this point, it just kind of highlighted one of the things that I take issue with in just maybe not Batwoman, but just CW episodes in general. And this is when Kate manages to get out and go ham on multiple enemies, which was a great action scene. You know, she used that metal pole, and she was kind of like fencing with some of the Wonderland gang. But the reason why I mention, you know, I take issue sometimes is because in this moment, you know, she was having pure vigilante Batwoman, Bat family, as you would expect, reflexes, being a badass. But yet, at the same time, you know, last episode, somehow she gets hit by a trumpet when she was even looking at Alice. I don't like these kind of inconsistencies in shows. I'm not being nitpicky. I'm just saying if Kate can do this in this moment, take on multiple enemies in a pure Bat-esque manner, as you would expect a Bat family member to do, how does she like get hit by over the head with a trumpet from her sister? I don't like stuff like that, and I just wish they would, and I know this is on about last episode, I just wish they would put a whole different scenario to situations like that so it wouldn't come out as unbelievable as it does. But you know, that's last episode. This fight here was really cool. This is where Kate, of course, had to break out the hostages, and of course, Beth now was in the bag. And for a second, in this moment, I really was wondering, like, holy crap, you know, was this going to be their way of getting rid of the whole doppelganger situation because of what happened with Crisis? And I thought, well, you know, maybe that would be a bit too dark. Like, Kate literally just kind of got, well, she didn't get her sister back, but she got a version of her sister back, and only to lose her would be very tragic. But maybe, you know, that is kind of a CW thing I would imagine happening, because they could just kind of shake it off eventually, as, you know, it wasn't her, Beth, and it's still really sad, but, you know, life moves on kind of thing, you know, TV show format. But they didn't do it. She broke her out, she managed to do it, and I'm pretty glad with that, just because I'm really intrigued to see where things go with the whole Beth situation, well, the doppelganger situation in general, because at the very end of the episode, both Beth and Alice's head started hurting, because also at the same time, totally forgot to mention that Alice managed to escape the crows single-handedly, you know, with that kind of wire that was holding the book together that, you know, Mouse and her repaired in the flashbacks. But what's going on with the whole, you know, I don't know, major migraine that both of them are experiencing? Now, I'm thinking maybe it's one of those things where, you know, both of them can't exist being in the same world. So what will happen as a result of that? Will they kind of merge somehow? I mean, if they get into close proximity, I'm not so sure about that, but maybe it'll be a kind of thing like neither can live while the other one, I don't know, that's kind of like a Harry Potter kind of thing there to you Harry Potter fans. But, you know, it'll be interesting, because will one of them die? I would have to say if one of them dies, it would probably be Beth, but then again, you know, they could merge somehow, which will add a lot more, I don't know, I'm not sure what purpose that would serve if they do merge, because you could argue if Beth merged with Alice, then that would make Alice a bit more humane and a normal version of herself, considering Beth is a version of her who never got kidnapped. But at the same time, I feel like Alice already has that, because she has those moments with Kate where it almost seems like she is herself. She's come out of the Alice persona, but then, you know, she flips back in. So I feel like if they did that just for that, I feel like Alice already has that humanity side of her, which is just locked really, really deep down. But maybe if Beth and her merge, perhaps, you know, that can become even more of a thing. But we're just going to ultimately have to wait and see. The only other thing I think I have to mention in the episode was that, of course, we had that moment at the end with Sophie and Jacob Kane saying that, you know, he kind of wants to put a bullet in his daughter because nobody would bat an eye, and it's kind of time to do that. And I was just like, holy crap, you really are done, aren't you? So that's another kind of interesting thing cooking up, because he's still got to be kind of somewhat of a problem when he eventually gets out of jail. But as a result, guys, the episode was interesting. I'm pleasantly surprised. It's still, I just want to get this clear, it's still like not my favorite show or anything like that. I have not enjoyed, I would say, 8 out of 10 episodes, but there's been 2 episodes, including this one, where I felt like, I can't deny, it was decent. It was really decent. And I just really hope that it continues to keep me engaged like this. So I'm super intrigued to know your thoughts on this episode, your theories down in the comments below. What do you think is going to happen with Beth and Alice now, especially with that ending. What did you think of everything else in the episode? You can also let me know that on my Discord server if any of you have a Discord account. Other than that, guys, like this video if you did enjoy it. Let me know as well if you want me to review next week's episode. With Batwoman, for me, it kind of hinges on, will I review next week's episode if I enjoyed this episode, or will I review it if something is interesting has happened? So also on top of that, I would love to know your input, because it's like, well, if you want to see it, I'll review it. Why not? And I enjoyed this one, so yeah, I'm intrigued to know what happens in next week's episode. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you, Bat Family, in the next video. Goodbye.